This light tutorial series aims to provide students support and providing students as speakers. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, she is graduated from integrated with a specialization from University of Hyderabad. Immersive vibrational coherence spectroscopy and is part of this group led by Professor Wojtowski. His vertical coherence tomography for vivo deep tissue imaging, cellular imaging of the head and eye of the mouse. And she will speak today about the glioblastoma tumor imaging using optical coherent microscopy. So I invite Monica Rapulu to give her presentation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning if you're in other part of the world. Can I use the video? Because it's off. I
Hello,
cannot.
Monica.
Sure,
Can
sure,
I use a video?
sure. You can use.
But I cannot
Hello, Monica.
because the host has stopped it. So can you just activate it?
So you want to use the video?
Okay, so hi everyone, welcome. So today I'm going to present you an interesting topic of in vivo imaging, which is imaging of glioblastoma tumor using optical coherence microscopy. First of all, I thank the student speakers for inviting me, and it's a pleasure for me to be presenting at this lecture series. So to start with, as we all know, that there are different kinds of tumor existing, like brain tumors, cancer in breast, in and various parts of the body. So as we know that the brain tumor is one of the very challenging and the most prominent tumor modalities where several millions of people are killed in a year. So to start about the glioblastoma, this is one of the most aggressive cancer in the brain.
Monica, sorry to interrupt, but your screen is not visible right now. So could you please reshare it?
Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, yes, it is visible. We can, yeah, it is visible now. Thank you.
Okay, so this is one of the most aggressive cancer in the brain, and they have the peculiar feature of the glioblastoma tumor is it has a different kind of cell types, like blood vessels and also dead cells existing together. And one of the important feature of the glioblastoma is the tumor cells are produced very rapidly when compared to the other tumor imaging. And also this tumor is abundant and it has a feature called neovascularization where the new vasculature will be growing up from the existing vasculature. And this is one of the most difficult tumors to treat and often cure is not possible till now. So our main objective with our work, what we are going to achieve is in vivo imaging. So in vivo imaging is just the live mouse imaging, if most of you are not from biological background to be familiar with the term. And we will be doing a longitudinal progression. So we'll be measuring the mouse over a period of time, like from a time period from few hours to few months, depends upon the immune system of the mouse how long it can live. And this is a non-invasive or a minimal damage to the mouse technique. So most of the existing system modalities use external contrast agents, or they harm the animals, like they're more invasive. So our main approach is we wanted to do less harm to the animal as much as possible. And we don't use any stainings like in other imaging modalities. And we also don't use any fluorescent fluorescent contrast agents. So we have almost the real environment in the in vivo imaging. So we wanted to monitor this tumor progression and development and see if in the pharmaceutical drug will be efficient to cure the tumor. So as you all know, for a drug to come into market, it would take almost 10 years. You need to do the experiments on the mice and on monkeys and chimpanzees, and the last stage would be human. So this is a process of 10 years. So we, with our technique, will be able to cut down to 3 months, because we'll be able to see the reversing of the glioblastoma tumor with this imaging technique. So you can see if the drug is working or not just in a matter of 2 months. So to come into the market, so this method will be very useful in order to have easy cure and also to have an efficient pharmaceutical drug curing. So this is our main objective. And then we use some quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis. Here we have used fractal analysis. It's a mathematical method to quantify this tumor. So to start with, we have to build a system. So in order to build this system, we have used a simple Gaussian Michelson interferometer system. As you can see, this is the system here. We have a femtosecond laser, and we use a fiber coupler, which splits the beam into 50-50. And one of the beam goes into the imaging arm or sample arm, where our mice is sitting here. And we have a CCD in order to monitor the position and to see the focus and adjustment of the mice. And then the other one and the other part of the fiber coupler goes into the diffraction grating, and this indeed goes into the line camera. So this is just where you can be able to record the interferogram, the line camera, but this is only one dimensional. Then we use post-processing algorithms in order to achieve to 3D and 4D imaging. So it involves a lot of complicated analysis for the post-processing. So here we have also used a scanning system, which is also called as MEMS, in order to have a very fast scanning with the galvanic mirrors. So if you look at the same experimental setup in our lab, this looks something like this, where you have our laser here, and then you have the focusing optics, and here you have your the big lens. Here is the one which goes into the line camera, and this is the sampling arm where our mouse is sitting here. So here you can see the mouse is placed comfortably with the ear plugs to make it stabilize, and you can see the cranial window on top of the mouse where the skin is removed in order to make the imaging easier. And we install a window which is called as a glass window for the imaging. So the important parameters of any system would be the resolution, right? So here we have an axial resolution of 2.5 microns. So you can see ideally at a very small vasculature, which is 2.5 microns. So in order to understand the tumors, you need to understand if the tumors are growing from when they're very small. So when you just inject the tumor, you need to know just from that point how is it going to be growing in a longitudinal term. So here the axial resolution is very important in order for the small tumor imaging. And we have a lateral resolution which is 3 microns. If you're from imaging background, you know that you always have a trade-off between axial resolution and as well as a lateral resolution. Here we have a depth resolution of 600 microns. Theoretically, but with our system with in vivo imaging, because with tissue and the biological scattering media, the depth becomes a bit complicated than the normal theoretical imaging. So here we have almost 300 microns for the normal tissue imaging. And the protocol we use is like we use 400 A lines and 400 B lines and the 248 pixels. So this is a dimension of the protocol which we have been using. So since most of you are not from a biological background, so you need to understand how the mouse brain looks like and how is it related to the human brain. So why we have chosen mouse brain but not any other system? This is because mouse brain is pretty much similar to the human system. So, and the tumor cells which are taken from the human are implanted into the mouse. So this is like you can almost directly correlate the growth process in a mouse to human almost in a straightforward way. So if you see the cross-sectional image, so you have a skin or bone which is on the top layer, and then you have a dura which is acting as a cover layer of the brain, and then you have an arachnoid matter, and then you have some pia matter and glia matter and a few layers of the brain. So this is how the cross-sectional images or the two-dimensional images of the brain looks like. And this is how when we install a cranial window it looks like. So you remove the skull by surgery, and then you implant a glass and fix it with the glue, and it can live like normally, because some people when they have tumor, they have surgery where the skull have to be removed. In the similar case, they also have a cranial window installed in their head, like for normal human beings, and they can live for the rest of life normally. So this is not any harmful procedure which is done on the mouse. And this is how on the right, the CCD image of the mouse looks like. So how about the cross-sectional images? Because we don't see directly the three-dimensional image with the imaging system. So how does a cross-sectional image looks like? So here on the left, extreme left, you can see the picture of the cranial window where the mouse is sitting. And then you can see this is a cross-sectional image. So you can directly correlate how is it from this cross-sectional image, which we study in the textbooks, to how it looks in the imaging system. So here, the sharp shining layer is a glass surface, and the other layers which I have described here can be seen in the cross-sectional images. So this is not exactly the correlation which we study in textbooks. This is how we see from the imaging system. So this, if you can see the mouse moving, so this is the blood vessel, and you can see the shadowing of the blood vessels. So these all shadows represent the blood vessels. The smaller the shadows, it means the smaller the blood vessels are. Since this shadow is bigger, so these are the big blood vessels, and you can see that the blood vessels are with the elliptical structure here. So with our system, we can detect the layer 4, but the resolution is not very clear with the layer 4. So till layer 3, we can have a pretty good resolution with our system. So here we use a Gaussian system with a 10x objective lens, and we have a glass and the dura and brain, which is imaged. So this is how our end phase image looks like. So to be familiar with the terms, end phase image is nothing but the angiography image, but it's just a structural image. It doesn't provide an information about the blood flow. It just only provides an information how it looks like, the structure. And here the dynamic scatter or angio-Ocean looks like. Here we use a dynamic scattering method in order to extract the flow information. So for example, you have a static object and a moving object. When you just subtract the consecutive images, you'll be ending up with the dynamic information. So the static information is suppressed or subtracted, and then you'll be getting only the dynamic information. So this simple algorithm, which gives us a flow information, is a main key for the angiography techniques. So you can see how a dynamic scattering looks like in this colored encoded image. So as I mentioned before, that we have a lot of algorithms. It's not just a simple imaging. Since it is a home built system, you need to do a lot of post processing in order to acquire a good quality angio imaging. So I have been working on many algorithms in order to achieve this. So to mention with mouse, as you all know, have a heartbeat and the respiratory system. Because of this, the whole mouse is moving up and down. So you have a motion which is or the dynamic motion, which is by default cannot be subtracted or suppressed, since it's a in vivo imaging. So when you don't have any motion correction, so all the cross-sectional images when you're acquiring in a scanning protocol, they will be just misaligned because of the movement, because of the breathing movement and the respiratory heart beating movement. So you will be just ending up with a structural image without any information, as you see with the no correction motion. And then you suppress the bulk motion. So when you use some algorithms like global phase fluctuations and bulk motion suppression, you'll be ending up by using a decorrelation method, we'll be ending up in aligning all the consecutive B scans or the cross-sectional images in order to achieve flow information. So you'll be achieving with this, but still you need to average a lot of cross-sectional images to achieve a high quality of imaging. So we use several averaging algorithms. So we used some different methods by taking the max or minimum, or the correlation coefficient, or any other or intensity information from the cross-sectional images, and we'll be achieving with much more better quality by using averaging algorithm. And then we use a depth encoded angio, because here in the averaging algorithm image, you can see that you don't know which depth is the vessel belong to. As we all know that the larger blood vessels on the top layer, but the smaller blood vessels can be in between the middle to larger blood vessels. So you need to depth encode. So you just segment according to the depth, and then you color code it in order to just see which is the depth. So here you can see the red is on the superficial layer, and whereas the orange is in the deeper layer. So you can see that the blue, the variation from blue to green gives you information of how deep is our imaging. But achieving a depth encoding image doesn't stop here, doesn't stop our analysis here, because you see this image, depth encoded image, have a lot of artifacts. It has a lot of background. It has a lot of stripes, and the information is not perfect. So we use some filtering methods like Frangi and adaptive threshold. So these are some post-processing algorithms where you can achieve a high quality angiography, which is ready for our quantitative analysis. So you can see the improvement with our algorithms, how beautifully you can achieve high quality imaging for the quantitative analysis. So then we use the fractal methods in order to extract the angioparameters, like how much is a vascular density, how many number of junctions are there, and how much is the tortuosity or lumpinarity of our image. So this is all the post-processing application of the mouse brain. So the main driving force of the glioblastoma imaging is we can visualize the small tumors up to 2 microns, and we can see the progression over a period of time, because longitudinal progression is very challenging, because the mouse itself has have been undergoing through a lot of trauma during this period. So you have inflammation and everything. So you don't achieve the same quality of imaging on all the days. So you may have a good quality of imaging because of the spread of tumor, the scattering properties are being changed over time. So to have a repeatability is a big challenge for the longitudinal imaging. That's why you can see most of the studies, they don't do any longitudinal imagings, because it's very painful for the animal, as well as it's painful for all the students to have a consistency and motivation to be able to work for 2 or 3 years to get the repeatability and to have the system be ready for the longitudinal imaging. And in our case, this glioblastoma mouse is not immunosuppressant, so it behaves as like a natural environment as a human. So the immune system is not suppressed, so you can have almost the natural biological process of the tumor growth in our system. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that we can put a pharmaceutical drug and we can see the reversion of the progression with our system. So these are the images which we obtained for the glioblastoma tumor up to 14 days, and the mouse couldn't survive after 2 weeks, and it had died. So we couldn't be able to obtain, because all the mouse don't have the same immune system. Some mouse can survive till 1 month, and some mouse could die earlier, just in few days. So as you can see, for the day 1, day 3, day 11, and day 14, the different qualities of the images. So you can see here the depth encoded image on the top image, and just the grayscale image on the bottom layer. So I will explain more detail about what does this image mean in the later slides. So these are just the depth encoded image. So when you divide into different depths, the quality is not the same, right? So as I mentioned, when you take the depth profile, it exponentially decays. So you will not be having a good depth information in different layers. So just to give you an insight how it looks like in the different layers. So you can see first layer and second layer and third layer, the quality of the images when you differentiate into the layer. So this is for day 3, the same quality. The top one is angiographic image. So you can see the vasculature or the blood flow information, whereas in the bottom, you can see structural information. So this is for the day 11, similarly, and day 14. So here, if you see the quantitative analysis, so we have just taken the circular portion where the tumor is injected, the circular portion where the tumor is injected, and this we have chosen this ROI for our analysis. So this is for different days, and this red dot is the region where we injected our tumor. So in the middle row of the images, you can see when you inject the tumor, the blood vessels have been dyed. So on first day and second and first day and third day, there are no vasculature. But what's happening is that on day 11 and day 14, the vessels have been growing. So these are just not the healthy vessels, but these are the tumor vessels which have been growing. So the chaotic behavior and the irregular morphology is the main feature when you compare to day 1 and day 3 to differentiate that this is a tumor which is growing but not the healthy vasculature. And also the quantitative parameters which I mentioned earlier, the fractal analysis would be also a key tool for us to define that these are the tumor morphologies. So this is what I was mentioning you before, which is called as angiogenesis, the growth of the tumor vasculature from the existing vasculature or from the dead vasculature is called angiogenesis. So the bottom picture is the fractal analysis, where you can be able to see the red dots are the joints of the vasculature, and these all are the skeletonized pictures of the vasculature. So for the quantitative analysis, we have tried to extract as many as parameters to quantify how this tumor is growing from a very first day of the injection. So here you have different parameters which are the vessel percentage area, junction density, average length of the vessels, and longitudinality, which quantifies our tumor. That you can see for different days, from day 1 to day 14, all these parameters are increasing. So which also states that our tumor vasculature, our glioblastoma tumor vasculature is growing very rapidly. The progression is really huge. As you can see, the scale of from day 1 to day 14, it's a very rapid growth. The main feature also of the glioblastoma tumor. So let's say if you don't take any tumor vessels and inject into the mouse, does it also have the same process? Does it also multiply the healthy vasculature? To answer this question, we have taken a control mouse. Control mouse is nothing but you just take a saline injection. It doesn't have any tumor cells. It's just a normal saline injections, and you inject into the mouse. So it's just like puncturing. You have an injection punctured into the mouse brain. So the vessels are destroyed, and you just puncture into the mouse. And you can see day 1, day 3, day 11, and day 14. The quality of the images of day 1 is not very good, but you can see the circular portion of this is the same. So it has a hole in the center, which is the area of our saline injection, which says that we don't have any neovascularization happening here. So it is just like a puncture, and it remains a puncture. So the vessels are not multiplied here. So similarly, when you compare in the different layers, this is how it looks like, the structural and angiographic images. So when you do the similar analysis for control mouse, as I mentioned earlier, this yellow dot in the middle is a region of the puncture. And you can see the vessels are not growing. It's just constant over a period of time, the region of the puncture. And you don't have any angiogenesis happening. So you don't have any vessels growing over a period of time in these yellow dots. And we did the similar studies for this, and you can see that the variation is very small, and the longitudinality parameter which remains constant. To just give you a four-dimensional image, which is growth over a period of time, the longitudinal growth for a few days, you can see the yellow dot is the region of injection of the tumor. So on the left side, you can see the tumor, which is growing. So you don't have any vasculature, and the vessels are growing. And you can see in the control growth, in the dotted circles, the vessels are not growing. It remains pretty constant over a period of time. And the conclusion with our studies, we could be able to do longitudinal progression, and we monitored it for almost 3 weeks. And we saw angiogenesis, which is clearly observed with our tumor mouse, and we could be able to quantify the progression of the tumor. So now we we are able to see the neovascularization and angiogenesis happening. So if we inject a pharmaceutical drug which claims that they can cure tumor or which is in the trial stage, we can be able to just take the drug and we see if we can be able to reverse the angiogenesis. So since we have now a model which can see the longitudinal imaging of the tumor, we can just take a drug and we can see if the reverse is happening. So we can just test the efficiency of the pharmaceutical drug. And later, we also plan to inject some contrast agents like large gold nanorods or intralipids in order to see the tumor from the deeper vasculature. So with this, I would like to conclude. Thanks to all of our team members, especially my professor Maciek Batkowski, who have been very supportive during the PhD studies. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the mice which have been sacrificed for their lives. So this is an image in Russia where they made a statue of the mouse knitting DNA in memory of their sacrifice for all the experiments which are done by us. So with this, I thank you. And any more questions?
Thank you, Monica. So now session is open for Q&A session. So either you can post the questions on Q&A session, or you can just raise your hand so that I can unmute you. And
Okay.
yeah, so okay, so I think your talk was very good, so everyone understood well, so we don't have any questions.
Okay.
So thank you. Okay, we have one question.
How is the control?
Yeah, how is the control group, Susan?
So the control group is we don't have any rules to choose a control group. This is just like a healthy mouse with saline injection. So we have taken control group of 3 mice, and we saw the same processes occurring in this. So the control group have chosen in such a way that we have the same saline injection without just the tumor cells. So this is how the control group is chosen.
Okay. Oh, okay, I don't think so. We have any other questions. So thank you again, Monica, for a wonderful talk.
Okay, 1 minute. I have more questions, I guess. So
Yeah,
what limits the resolution? So the limitations of the resolution is basically with the Gaussian imaging. So since the detection system is Gaussian, so we cannot be able to achieve less than 2 microns because of the imaging system. So we have been using 10x objective with the numerical apertures of 0.3. So we have to compromise between the resolution and as well as a resolution and as well as the field of view. So this what limits our resolution, especially the confocal parameter here. And please explain in detail about the control mouse. Yeah, so as I mentioned about this, the control mouse is just the group which we have chosen without the cell line injection. And if you want to see, if you wanted to know more details, I have a paper published on the same, which is in Biomedical Optics Express. So, and it's open access. So you can see more details about the experiments, especially the biological part in that, because the biology studies are supported by the biology group. So you'll be able to get more information there. So the title is Longitudinal Imaging, and you can find it in Biomedical Optics Express. If you just type my name, you can be able to get the paper. And another question is, tumor images depends on polarization of light. Is it by refrigerance? So here we haven't chosen any properties of the polarization of light. So here it's just the normal polarization. I mean, we haven't considered any polarization property of the light here. And more information you can be able to get in the paper.
One question we have in the chat box. So this is have you examined with other species?
What?
Have you examined with other species? This is the question.
I cannot understand. Have you?
Yeah. Have you examined with other species? Apart from mouse, yeah, apart from mouse, he is using.
Can you tell? Okay, have you examined with other species? No, no, no. We haven't examined with other species because we have limited, because the working distance is very important. So we have a pretty much working distance which is only applicable to the mice. So if we wanted to examine other species, then we have to design our system with different parameters to have a good working distance. Like for example, if you want to work with monkeys or chimpanzees, and according to the animal rights, we can only work with mice, and we have only permission to work with the mice. And the other question is, can you say anything the targeting the tumor cells? Did you use traditional drugs with fluorophores? So for now, we have did only the longitudinal imaging. So our next step is to use the drugs, and we don't want to use any fluorophores. We are just using a pharmaceutical drug. So we have collaboration with the pharmaceutical company, which they claim that their drug is efficient for tumor imaging. So we have been using only the normal pharmaceutical drug, not any traditional drugs. Yeah. Thank you very much. It was a very good question and answer session, and I'm very glad that you all are interested in the work.